Alright, here we go. Welcome back to the Agamemnon game review. Today we're going over the footage that was captured on the 17th of August, 2018. Today's recording is being recorded on the 23rd of August, 2018. As mentioned in the last video, which was only about 16 minutes long, I had become really tired and decided to call it a day and come back later, which turned out to be the next day. And here we go. 9 o'clock at night, basically. One thing I've been doing since the Battle of Azeroth has launched is trying to standardize my video productions from a schedule point of view. So, because I stream on Twitch, and I've been producing videos for YouTube, my YouTube site. I want to kind of standardize my schedule so that I have a better production schedule. So we are. They sent us to go collect these flowers and gather these resources from these reptiles. One thing I always do as a demon warlock is update my health stones as soon as I log in, and then every 10 minutes you have to update your soul stone in case you get killed or lynched by some alliance foe. You can resurrect quickly. Now myself, I do play with war mode on, but I'm not really good at PvP. But I figure the more you play it, the better you'll get at it. So I used to be the type that pretty much avoided PvP, but after I had been playing Star Wars: The Old Republic and World of Tanks and World of Warships for a while, I kind of lost that thinking. Now I just see it as another aspect of the game that you probably should develop skill in playing. One thing that I've noticed on the Horde side, since I've been playing on the Horde side pretty much, is that you don't really see a whole lot of Horde players ganking Alliance players, even when they're out around doing quests. I don't really see it. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but I don't really see it. But I do see Alliance people ganking Horde people anywhere. And my point with that is they're supposed to be the people with honor. So we're continuing on getting the reptiles here. Now again, I've primarily only hunted the aggressive ones and left the neutral ones kind of at peace there, since they're kind of young. A respectful hunter only probably wouldn't shoot a young game. You want them to grow nice and big, and then you take them out. That's how you do it. I've been experimenting around with Adobe Premiere here, trying to improve the sound quality of my videos. So I ventured into the on the audio suite of Premiere, they have two sides: the audio clip mixer and then the audio track mixer. And then so once I have all my clips loaded up, because Fraps records it in 5 GB clip size, so they're about 2-minute clips basically. They turn out to be. And then once you load them up into your editor, then you go over to the audio track mixer, and then you only have to mix the volume for the entire track rather than go through with the audio clip mixer one clip at a time adjusting the volume. It's a little more economical way, I think, of doing it. One of the overall goals I have of doing these small videos in these half-hour increments is that you pick up, I think that's the best way to learn a tool like Adobe Premiere, Adobe Illustrator, and all that, is learn it as you use it, and your need kind of gives you purpose to want to learn different aspects of the software, rather than simply just go read. Like if you go take a course on Adobe Premiere, they'll go over all a broader version of the editor, which is probably good, but I think it's better to learn as you have a need to learn it. Because I think you retain more out of it and you get more out of it. And at the same time, you can apply it to what you're doing at the time. And I think it reinforces the things at the time. But the overall goal is, by doing all these smaller projects, it will help with the skill set that we need to learn for doing Chronicles of Earth 9, which hopefully will be coming out later this year. I have a couple of key things that I want to do for Chronicles of Earth 9. A couple of other things I have to acquire before I can actually sit down and commit them to a video editor or a 3D animation bench. But I started at the north end of this little pond, and then I gradually worked my way to the south end, because the other quests were all in this area here. So, and there didn't seem to be a lot of other adventurers on this side of the pond too. So, one thing that this character does not have that all my other characters have is a cooking skill. Something I plan to acquire at some point. One thing I like with a character that was non-boosted as opposed to a boosted character is you have all these basic skills already out of the way, and you can utilize those as you're going through the area. That if when you boost a character, he doesn't really have all those abilities, and it can make for a minor convenience to have those cooking skills, fishing skills, archaeology skills. You know, I used to like first aid, but they got rid of that. So seems whatever I like, that's what they get rid of. It's been my experience with this game. As soon as I start, oh, I really like that, that's when they get rid of it. So we gotta wait for this stuff to respawn. One thing that I like with at least this game is when you're walking through the forest, how the sound in the background kind of evolves as you're moving through the landscape. It's really interesting. This is definitely a very loud forest. Teeming with life. One thing I noticed over last night, I was watching Quissy's stream and their alliance, and they were in Cold Terrace and they were running around looking for pebbles, and they had to come to Zandalar. And one thing I noticed with the alliance is no matter where they go in Azeroth, where they land, they always, for the faction that's supposed to be friendly, we're all on the same team, we love nature, they always seem to infuriate the natives. And then they're usually having to win back sort of their friendship, or they have to do something because they usually end up wrecking relations with some native culture, and then they have to do something to repair that, or wherever they go they leave stuff in ruins. They have a negative impact on their culture, and you don't really see that on the Horde side. You would expect that on the Horde side, because that's sort of what the Horde, that's what we do. But even when the Horde went to Pandaria, they, except for the part where Hellscream smashes the is it the Harmony Bell there? My experience so far in Pandaria has been when we landed there, they were already in a battle. And so we had to get that baboon race to make peace, which we did. We had to deal with the Alliance, and then we had to deal with the Pandarians. It's all positive. Same thing here. We've come into this thing. We had to rescue the princess, bring her home, keep the Alliance from capturing her or killing her. And then when the Alliance came over, from what I observed, they were fighting their way onto the land, fighting their way through their temples, and seems opposite of what the Alliance is supposedly for. Myself, I follow the lore very closely, and at least in the recent years I have. And I feel from an observer that the Alliance is in a very vulnerable place right now. As a sort of a organization, they haven't grown as an organization. And within that organization, the Ghanaians are damaged. Night Elves are damaged. The dwarves were damaged, but they're slowly coming back. The gnomes, though they're productive, they're damaged. The only faction in the Alliance that has any real standing in the world is the humans and Stormwind, and even then they're vulnerable, because on their own they would have been wiped out. And the other human factions, they've been wiped out for at least 12 years. And they're now the Forsaken. So the Alliance is in a very vulnerable place. But the Horde itself, despite what people think about Sylvanas, the Horde has grown in the last 12 years. If you go back and look at Warcraft 3, the game is really divided into two parts. You have the initial part where you're dealing with the Horde, and they go to Kalimdor, and they sort of create the Horde in a Thrall's vision. But then the second half of the game deals with the Forsaken. And at the end of Warcraft 3, after they deal with the Burning Legion, they the Warcraft 3 is really where you're introduced to the new Horde under Thrall and the Forsaken under Sylvanas Windrunner. And then in the lore, 3 years go by, and that's when classic World of Warcraft comes out. And if you read the book Cycles of Hatred, that deals with the period between Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft, and it deals with Jaina Proudmoore and the politics that are going on in Kalimdor within the 3-year time span, and then they're thrusted into classic World of Warcraft. And the events that happen all the way up to the Burning Crusade. And but my point is, the Horde from that time period has grown. They started off really with just 3 factions. Then they added a Forsaken, which was 4 factions. Then they added, see, their first 3 were what? The Orcs, Trolls, and Tauren. Then they added a Forsaken. Then they added a Goblins. And then they added, the Pandarian. And, oh yeah, the Blood Elves. So 7 factions. And all of them are growing and getting stronger, when you think about it. Even the Goblins, who had a kind of a catastrophe, they moved on to the mainland of Kalimdor. And if you look at the Alliance, on the other hand, the Night Elves area was just wiped out. Ghanaian's area was not only wiped out by the Forsaken, the land was destroyed in the Cataclysm. And their people are refugees. The Night Elves are refugees. 2 of the 3 human cultures were wiped out, and only the Stormwind survives. The dwarves had an internal conflict, which they've sort of gotten past that, but they're kind of weak from a military point of view. And then the gnomes, who are strong technologically, but they lost their area to the goblins, right? And then they're refugees too. They're living with the dwarves. So, let's see, what is that? Humans, dwarf, gnomes, Night Elves, and Ghanaian, the Warven. And of those, only one culture is not living as refugees. But when you go all the way back to Warcraft 2, it was the other way around. Only Stormwind were refugees. The other 4 factions were 5 if you include the Pandarian. The other 5 factions were strong. Now, 4 of those 6 factions are refugees. The Pandarians really aren't refugees, but they live on a faraway land. And even with the Kulterans, their navy had been not necessarily wiped out, but they were destroyed in the Warcraft 2 or Warcraft 3. And they start the whole conflict hating the Alliance. So So I feel from a lore perspective that the Alliance are really in a weak position, while the Horde has grown. So if the Horde picks up the Zandalari trolls, and that's gonna give them 8 actual factions that aren't living as refugees. The only faction in the Horde that are technically refugees are the Forsaken, but they were refugees to begin with. They were living in the Undercity, so. I feel what Blizzard should have done, because if you go back and study how the Forsaken sort of come about, there was a undead plague that I forget his name, but he created the plague, which created the undead, and is that why Arthas to them, when they went to that one village, was it Stormhome, whatever? They wanted they had they infected the food source, so all those people were going to wake up undead. And then Straddlehorn, is that what it's Straddlehorn? And then that sort of begins the plight of the Forsaken. And, it's really cool. But the point being is they're the only ones that are really refugees, but they've always been refugees in World of Warcraft. I still think Blizzard should move the Forsaken into Theramore. Supposedly Thrall is supposed to come back with the ashes of Vol'jin, so maybe Thrall has a vision from the Earth Mother. What has thrown me for a loop in the lore is that in the beginning they were saying mining the Azeroth was dangerous and it was killing Azeroth. You know. And then they turned around and said, here, take this amulet and be fruitful and multiply, basically. And it seemed like the opposite of what they originally said. So, or perhaps when we closed those fissures in Silithus, it stabilized her condition. But she technically is still dying, right? I imagine at some point we're going to have to return to Silithus. One thing that I did pick up as I was playing through here, when you click on the quest achievements, you have to click into the actual, I'm going to call it event. And then the track option comes up. And I figured it out as I was playing through here. I don't know if it was on the 17th, but either 17th or 18th. When was the 17th? Was it a Friday? Yeah, 17th was a Friday. So I didn't play on the 18th. 19th I did the Sunday night I always do. I played my other character, my ult, and then I picked it back up on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and tonight's the 23rd. So. I finally got to view some of the clips on YouTube on the big TV over the last couple days. They came out pretty good. I only really see a problem with the audio. Might be a little low for some people. So, taking steps to improve that, but the visual qualities have been pretty good. The streaming on Twitch has been pretty good too. And exporting it to YouTube has worked out well over the week and a half. So it's had the effect that I had hoped. I didn't know what was going to happen, so I decided to walk to the back side of this in case he got angry and started running. But he ended up turning like really small and he passed out. Oh. That wasn't the desired effect. Instead of making a dinosaur a horn dog, it turned him into a sleepy a little sleeper there. This is kind of funny. It didn't really make her horny other than she's raging. Maybe she likes the rough sex. Here, we're coming up on the last 2 minutes of the clip. Before we pick it up in part 2. These half-hour clips have been working out very well. As soon as I get done shooting the footage, which is only an hour long, then I can process it through a media encoder. And then it takes about an hour. And then each clip, once they're done, takes about an hour to process. And then another hour, sometimes 2 hours to upload to YouTube. And I've been using the schedule tool on YouTube, so like if I load it up today, then I load it up 2 days later, so they're all loaded up in advance. So I have some leadway. I've been trying to load up so all the parts load up at the same time. But sometimes YouTube doesn't cooperate. And so you do the best you can. Here these guys making excuses. Neither the science nor the voodoo had the desired results. Well, we'll catch you on the flip side of part 2.